Thank you everyone for registering and participating today. This is Julia Wissing, and I am here to welcome you and kick off the 9th webinar in the Learning Views webinar series. This series is a partnership between Training Pros and Harrisburg University, and we are in 9 sessions. Wow, time flies and you are having fun. And talking about having fun, when many of us first heard about gamification, we may have thought, awesome, we can play games and have fun while we're at work and call it e-learning. Well, in fact, up to 75% of Fortune 500 firms have adopted some form of e-learning, and gamification is fast becoming one of the leading practices in learning in that learning space. Now, Charles is going to dive much deeper into that subject in just a minute. But while everyone is joining, allow me to introduce the 2 organizations that host the Learning View webinars. First, let's have a little bit of fun today. While we're doing this introduction, one of my favorite gamification techniques is the use of avatars. So as you join, if you have a personal favorite avatar, please go ahead and type that in while I make these introductions, and we can have a little bit of fun with that. So if I were to say Training Pros avatar, I would probably make it a connector of some sort. We'll have to think about that one. But basically, Training Pros leads the industry in matching or connecting L&D consultant talent with organizations when they don't have the internal capacity to design, develop, and deliver learning solutions to their organizations. So the 3 strengths that really differentiate Training Pros are the expert relationship managers, a talent pool of loyal consultants, and a proven methodology for success through tested onboarding and offboarding of both our clients and our consultants. And trust me, this approach really makes a huge difference in the process. Now, I mentioned that we wanted to get your participation. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and add in your name and where you're from so that we can see if we can gather everybody from coast to coast here. And while we're talking about coast to coast, as you see on the screen in front of you, Training Pros provides an end-to-end solution helping organizations meet their strategic goals. And you'll see here the expertise areas on the slide cover everything from professional facilitation, e-learning, m-learning, and instructor-led design and development. It includes training coordination and even robust learning management systems, or LMS. So like I said, end-to-end plus some. I also mentioned about our relationship managers. I am a relationship manager based in the Texas market and serve clients nationally. And it is one of our key differentiators because all of our relationship managers have a background in learning and development with varied industries. For example, you can see in my background, it's diverse from healthcare, internet, international, profit, nonprofit, and so on. We also have varied backgrounds in learning and development. Mine, for example, is heightened in leadership, change, and sales training. And we all stay up to date and engaged in the community through organizations and community work as well. You can learn more about Training Pros through our website at training-pros.com and the phone and email you see on the slide. And also Justin's going to provide more information at the end of our session today. So now what you're really here for, I mentioned at the beginning of the session, over the past couple of years, the term gamification has been accepted in business and education and has opened the door for changing learning and performance through the use of games. Today's speaker, Charles Palmer, is the director of the Center for Advanced Entertainment and Learning Technologies at Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. We are very excited as our partner Charles explains to us how to use gamification in business and training and to practice applying game mechanics to our training and change management initiatives. So without further ado, Charles Palmer.
All right. Thanks a lot, Julia. Um, Good evening or late afternoon, everyone. My name is, as mentioned, my name is Charles Palmer, and we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at this idea of gamification and how it can be used beyond where we normally see gamification these days, and that would be in product releases and in entertainment venues. Personally, I have a role here at Harrisburg University. I'm an associate professor in interactive media. I also chair our interactive media program. Another huge part of my program, I'll see that someone wants this volume louder. Another large part of my work here is I'm the director of our Center for Advanced Entertainment and Learning Technologies, which fits nicely in with gamification. The idea that we are the idea that we are marrying the entertainment world with the learning world and the learning technologies. My production focus happens to be web development, game design, video, and database management. And prior to being here, I was actually a faculty member at Carnegie Mellon University, and I had the opportunity of working in entertainment technology there. So I'm getting some.
Charles, this is
Yes.
yeah, Charles, this is Justin. Can we try to switch over to your off your headset and see if we can the audio's chopping for some reason.
Let me.
I think we got you muted here, so just while you run your test. Thanks for your patience, folks. We'll get this sorted out. Of course, we tested everything at the beginning, but once we go live, of course, things get a little fishy. All right.
Sorry about that. Is that any better? Better audio, better focus.
It's seems to be fading in and out a little bit, Charles. Just try to turn that, if you're on the microphone in your computer, just try turning it up just a little bit more.
Yes, gremlins always attack as soon as you go live. Justin, is that any better? I'm just going to talk a little louder and see if that works. All right, so sorry about that. Always the gremlins are in the system as soon as we decide to go live. So enough about what I do here at the university. I'm a professor. I'm the chair of a program. I'm the executive director for our center. My areas of focus are listed there, and I used to work in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon University in entertainment technologies. So we're going to talk mostly today about this topic of gamification. And as Julia said, it's a topic that most of us have heard very frequently these days, where it used to be that anything that began with the letters GAM was just a four-letter word. But we're also starting to see examples of gamification used in a variety of different areas. When it really boils down to it, you'll see there's a title of a book there. But gamification is the process of applying game design principles and thinking to non-game activities, meaning taking activities that are normally not associated with gaming and seeing if we can add mechanics to it to make it more engaging, like games are for most people. In most instances, the purpose is to motivate the player into some action. We're seeing gamification in products. We see it in healthcare, consumer goods, publishing, as well as education, which is the area we tend to work in. Justin, you want to pull up that first poll? So here's an image that some of you may be familiar with, and I'm wondering if you know what this image is, or what does this image mean to you? The other slide. Sorry, Justin. The other poll. Never mind. Go back to the slide. If in the chat field, if someone could type in, what does this image mean to you? What do you see there? See a lot of indications for motivation, carrot, using the stick as a motivator, carrot and stick. Is this a positive experience for the user or a negative experience? Yeah, we can pretty much agree that this is more of a negative experience. The person never achieves their goal in this particular example. It's just out of reach. So it can be extremely frustrating. Um, Someone mentioned they're a very unattainable goal and you throw it off your head and so. When we're talking about gamification, we're talking about creating an experience where we create this reaction in our players or in our gamers. We want them to think that the thing that just completed generated an epic win for them. And I'm using the term epic win. I'm using the term epic win because Jay McGonigal sort of uses that term quite a bit in her work. She's an American game designer and author. She works in a number of different spaces, but she sort of coined or sort of uses this stage or this image or this idea quite often because she's talking about this feeling that the user should be able to complete a task and think, wow, that was amazing, and not only was it amazing, I'm amazing as well for being able to complete that. So I mentioned a little earlier that we see gamification showing up in a variety of different places. Here's an example of how gamification can be used to motivate behavior change. This is taken from the dashboard of a hybrid vehicle. And what you're looking at there is the dashboard, and on the right-hand side, you'll note that there are some efficiency leaves. So Lori, you can attest to this then. She says that this is her car. The idea here is that as you drive a hybrid vehicle, what you want to do as a hybrid driver is you want to save the environment. You had some reasons for actually purchasing that vehicle and making use of it. The idea with the dashboard is as you prove and become more efficient with your driving, you grow leaves. In a sense, motivating you to continue the activities or to reinforce the activities that you're doing. To reinforce the activities that you're doing while you're driving so that we understand exactly what the good behavior is and it's reiterated. So sorry, I'm just going back and forth because it sounds like my volume might be causing some people problems. So by having just those leaves on the dashboard, we can actually motivate the driver to behave differently behind the wheel. Here is an example of a personal vehicle, but we also see this happening very often in commercial vehicles as well. Yes, you get in some vehicles you actually get a numeric score as well. It would be great if this tweeted out by itself or compared my score with someone else's scores, but we'll see how that's being used in other examples as well. So as we're going through the process of thinking about gamification and just here are two lists. On the left-hand side, we have usage and where we're seeing it used. As we saw in the dashboard example, it's used as a motivator. It can also invoke healthy competition amongst a team. We're seeing it mainly being used in products to generate buzz around a product. And it can also be used in a number of areas where it's encouraging loyalty within a customer. The things that we expect to get from having a gamified experience are that we can change the user's behavior. We can get the users to comply to some ordinances or some business processes that we have in place. We can, in some cases, generate more engagement with individuals, and we can create variation. We can make an experience more engaging today than it was yesterday and sort of taking out the monotony of some of the activities that players or people undertake in their job function, let's say. So this idea is that we take activities and we surround them with game elements, and we use those game elements to make non-game activities more engaging. We often think of this sort of this area here. So it is gamification which touches the four other categories that we see here, and that's the players. There should be a goal for the player. There should be a way of addressing that goal through some motivation for the player, and we should reward the player. We shouldn't leave the carrot just out of their reach. We should give them some way of reaching back to it and actually, capturing that carrot and being able to work So we'll take a little bit of time and look at some examples. Some are new examples, some are a little older examples, but nonetheless, there's some examples that we can look at to see how gamification is used in a variety of different areas. The first one that you'll see here is listed as fun theory. What I would like you to do, and everyone doesn't have to do this, but it might be kind of cool if there's a URL listed there, and I'm going to take a 2-minute pause and give you an opportunity to go and take a look at that video. We can't play it through the browser, but I would like some of you to go take a look at it, and when we come back, we'll talk about what actually happens. So if you can, go ahead and watch the video, and if you can just chat or text done when you've completed it. I know that most of you have completed it, and we'll move along. So just a couple more seconds here. We'll see if a couple other people finish up, and then we will. All right, so many of you have seen this video before, and most of you enjoyed it, and the reason you enjoyed it is a great example of motivation. As you saw at the end, there were some stats that were listed, that 66% more people took the stairs, and then there were some other things. So if we looked at that video and we thought about that video, we have these 4 categories to consider. The goal was to get people to use the stairs. The players were not just the general public, but actually very specific public. They were people who use public transportation at this particular train station. So that's pretty important as well. Their motivation is rather interesting. Their motivation was fun or curiosity. You know, coming out of the subway station, they sort of see these piano steps, which were a break in their normal routine, which got them thinking to something differently, and they went to investigate by walking. And their final reward was actually this idea that, oh, wait a minute, this was fun, or this was an activity. They sort of got a tone back from the stairs themselves, and you saw many people trying to tap out a tune on the piano as well. So that's a great look, and when I think about motivating employees, and I think about how the various components that we should address, I'm using these 4 things. All right, let's look at another example. Some of you may have used Foursquare in the past. Foursquare, a little over a year ago, spun out a different product called Swarm. Foursquare, the purpose of Foursquare was a mobile application that allowed individuals to, quote unquote, check in to various locations. So on the back end, it was a way of seeing where customers were going and which services they were using or products they were purchasing in some cases. Now Swarm has sort of morphed into a new product. Foursquare has morphed into a new product called Swarm. And if we think about it the same way, we have these 4 categories. So using Swarm, there are actually 4 things that take place. Using Swarm, you have the ability to become a mayor of a location. And you become the mayor of a location by being the first amongst your friends to check into a place multiple times. It's not just the first, but you want to be the individual to check in the most. And you become essentially the virtual mayor of that place. By completing different activities, you also get stickers, which you can attach to those activities or notifications that you send out to your circle of friends. It also does, it uses this idea of geofencing to allow you to say, well, which ones of my friends are around, and can I invite them to go out for drinks? It's sort of a way of not having to touch base with every user, but send out a short blast message that will only go to the friends that are within the vicinity. In air quotes, they use the term neighborhood. You can also search your past activities, sort of like Second Life, yep, but now we're in our mobile phone and a lot more, less processing power to actually display the experience. There is one component of this that I think is kind of odd, and I don't know how long they'll keep it around, but it does this idea of neighborhood sharing. Now, you do have to turn it on, but when you do turn it on, it means when you pop into a neighborhood, all your friends get a notification that you're in that neighborhood, which is, I consider a security risk. But what happens on the back end of this is individuals strengthen their relationships. Their goal is, it might be to be the mayor of some place, but it also might be to be very social in their circle of friends. The players are the friends themselves. So it's not just me, but it's me and my 5 or so close friends that we're all sort of, in air quotes again, playing together. And that sort of lives off of my motivation. And the reward, again, is to be the mayor or to get access to certain content that others don't have access to, such as stickers and things like that. If we go into some of the educational examples that we have here, as Khan Academy, many of you have heard of Khan Academy, very hot in the K-12 space, as a way of providing either remedial work or for students that want to advance into another area. And I just want to talk about this briefly and give an example. In the system, you gain badges for completing challenges, which are more coming from your coach or things that you've learned or gleaned. 2 summers ago, my daughter wanted an underwater camera. My wife and I wanted her to spend more time with 5th grade math. So we motivated her actions by telling her she could have that camera if she completed the 5th grade math course on multiplication and division. She actually did it. We were able to jot her progress. We were also able to see what she was struggling with and suggest other alternatives. She completed it, but I will say she completed it about 2 hours before we left for the airport. So she took it down to the very last minute to complete the task. But having the analytical information of seeing what she covered and how many times it took her to complete various things gave us a great picture of knowing exactly how she was doing online. So these tools are also being used by larger companies, where we'll see Verizon is using it as a way of their gamifying their customer service experience. So if you are someone that is following the blogs or engaging in some of the activities that they're doing under their community hubs, you get access to exclusive offers. You get to participate in real-world events just because you are part of this community. You're reading reviews and you're finding out more and more about what Verizon has to offer. One of their problems that they were trying to solve was customers not being familiar with all of the offerings that they had. And this was a way of sort of engaging a certain type of client or customer, but it was a great customer for them and very rewarding from what I gleaned. Verizon is a big company, but there are lots of others who are making use of it. I met recently with some folks over at Salesforce to see how they were implementing it into their products to change some of the methodologies that they were using and seeing what change that had overall. So, the idea here is, yes, it's something that is new, sort of, but it's getting lots of momentum. There are lots of individuals out there using it, and it has stemmed from just a individual company rolling your own to a number of companies coming out and providing a service to help support this activity. In the past, we would have to build our own web servers and hooks into various tools in order to do this, but luckily we don't have to do that anymore. We can actually find off-the-shelf companies that are providing this. So there are sort of 6 things to think about of why we do this and how it is. And one of the things about how we can revolutionize the workplace is this idea that we can tap into the intrinsic motivators of the individual learner. If we think about what inspires us individually, and or if we think about activities that an individual would use to inspire them, and we can capture those along with the activities within gamification, we have a better chance of having someone complete or stay engaged in an activity. Gamification can tap into 5 of the most common motivators: the sort of I control, I improve, I make a difference, I achieve, and I connect with others. And when we sort of lock these things together, this means that gamification has the potential to unlock a variety of activities across our entire organization when we look at the employee. Some of the other things is, if I know what motivates my employers, can I then take the behaviors that I would like to use and apply them to keep those employees engaged? It can be data driven, so this isn't an all or none. This isn't have all the employees complete this activity and then I look at the data and see what changes me, but I can be constantly looking at the data and improving the activities of the employees, improving the engagement that they have, and making changes along the way as well. It's sort of seen, or it's actually, let me go advance. We're seeing increased adoption, so that we're seeing this happening in various departments. We're seeing that it's a way of promoting retention and keeping employees engaged, driving up employee knowledge, having them have the ability to be knowledge or content managers in some cases. So an individual might be known as the expert on using a particular type of form because players in the game have seen them exhibit those activities in the past and recognize them as an owner of that particular discipline or an authority within the organization. We've seen it being used to boost call center employee performance, and we've seen a lot of tools out there that sort of do that as well. So it's not just gamification. And we'll see some examples of how customer loyalty changes through this process as well. Okay, so let's dig in a little bit more for gamification. I think by now we've talked about some examples of it, and some theoretical ideas of how it can be used, but I do want to cover a couple of things before we talk about how to build these activities or the things to consider. One is, gamification really does sit in the middle of these 3 ellipses. We've seen it grow out of this idea of loyalty programs. We've seen engagement that can happen through game design, and we've seen the power of reputation that an individual employee can have. When we think of loyalty programs, I remember being a kid and my grandmother actually having S&H green stamps. But that's sort of one of the early modern examples of loyalty programs, where as I went and shopped, every time I shopped or spent X number of dollars, I would gain stickers. I would put those stickers in my book, and then I would bring them back to the retailer and to get a discount or to get some additional products. I did find an older version, but this was back in long ago in the sugar trade in the Middle East, which a similar example of that would be the baker's dozen, where I purchased 12 and I get an extra one because I went through the extra effort of purchasing the entire dozen. We also see it in airlines. This started in the mid-50s, where we got loyalty to the brand, the airline, because we got it through frequent flyer miles, and we turn those miles into stuff. We still do that today. Lower right, Starbucks uses this, where I take my dollars and I upload them to an account. Starbucks kindly gets interest off of that money, and I get to buy merchandise, and it increases my ability to be able to go and shop quickly. And then if you're like me, we have a lot of these cards, these loyalty programs that sit on our key ring. I can remember probably 20 years ago now, of newspaper articles about grocery stores using this product, and lots of people saying, well, I really don't want Big Brother knowing that I buy bread on Wednesdays. I want to keep my information to myself. My data is private. Until the stores turned around and said, I tell you what, we'll give you 10 cents off on your gas if you give up that privacy. And lots of us nodded our head and jumped right on board and willing to give up that data that's being collected on us. We get some benefit out of it. Obviously, we get gas or reduced prices, but in sometimes coupons as well. The company gets an ability to forecast that they could not get before. Just to rush through this second two here, when we think about game design or games themselves engage players. And we want to create some of the things or use some of the things from game design in order to engage players. The die represents randomness or chance that will happen inside of an experience. Some days I will complete an experience, some days I will not. Some activities will gain me greater rewards than others based on the makeup of the game itself. The board in the middle, the board game, is sort of a way of looking out at the entire field and understanding, where do I fit in the scheme of everyone who's engaged? The kiss cam, which is very common used, is a little bit of engagement of looking at video or watching activities and seeing how other people engage in a game. And then I can either mimic behavior or stay away from the negative behavior that I might see enacted. Lower right are leaderboards, and leaderboards are fantastic. We have a lot of players who are motivated by their position in the game and want to know that they're doing better than their colleagues. And when you have one leaderboard, you end up with a very narrow field where everyone is equating themselves to that one measure, and you can only have so many people in the top 10 and everyone else sort of filters down below. But when you create multiple leaderboards, let's say a leaderboard just for new employees, or a leaderboard for various departments within the organization, or leaderboards that are specific to individual competencies, now as a player, I have the opportunity to engage in a number of different activities with the chance of sort of positioning myself within multiples. And as I mentioned before, this is all about the epic win. We want the player to go through an experience, enjoy it, be able to brag about it, which we'll see in the next one, but really have a great feeling about themselves. You know, how many times have you played a game and completed something that was challenging? Whether it's a board game, a game of Monopoly with your friends and you gain bragging rights, or an online game with maybe your mobile phone. An online game with your mobile phone where you were playing against yourself. So there are a couple of things going on here in the chat. So Lori, are there studies for whether the majority of learners find leaderboards motivational or demotivational? So there are studies, and we're trying to look at these and figure out there's another indicator. So I will say that personally, I'm not that motivated by competition, but I understand that other players are. When we get to the player types, you will see that there are various ways that we can approach different types of learners with different game mechanics to try and engage them. So it's not like we're having all learners take on the same opportunity, but we are providing different activities for different types of players. So we'll see that in a little bit. Yeah, so I think this applies to everyone, not. The millennials are sort of this interesting bunch. They want to be pat on the back quite a bit. So having a leaderboard that is subdivided is great for them. But I've also seen it work in other age groups as well. Yeah, so sales groups, so of all ages, and that's what we're getting at. So it can be used to motivate a number of different, but I do believe there are some people that this is not the primary way that you motivate them, and it can work as a secondary way, which we'll see when we look at some of the mechanics. And then the last part of this, which is a little more social, where you will see if you're watching Facebook or Twitter or anything, and what we're seeing in this top image is an Xbox One sort of screen, but it's showing my individual reputation. And this is saying that I need to do more work on my reputation. In that particular game environment, it's how social I was in games, how often I played with other people, and how much I acknowledged their abilities or what they were working on. We have badges in a variety of games that pop up for people, and the badges are a great way of saying I have achieved a certain level. And when those badges are public facing, I'm now showing other people that I have status. When I was talking before about identifying that I happen to be a knowledge expert in a particular area and having a badge associated with that, that really sets me up as the individual for others to come ask for information or questions within that particular area. So status is another thing that's pretty important to some people. Reputation becomes a part of that. So most gamification experiences begin with this idea of a point system. Here what we're looking at is a way for one employee to compare their performance or their activities to someone else. The point system at the heart of it, a number of the gamifications that we've created had point systems that were either for, could you restate the 5 motivators for workers? I see the question now. I can just go back in my notes for a second. You know what, give me a couple minutes and I'll, Justin, if you don't mind, I'll get back to that in a second. So in many of the gamification activities that we've created, whether we're using it in an ARG, an alternate reality system, or purely as, we've done this as a mobile app as well, there is a point system. Sometimes that point system is not exposed to the user, but there might be an underlying system that sort of controls what the learner or what the player is actually achieving. Around that point system, we actually have this loop of activity that takes place. I spoke a little earlier about this idea that this isn't just a one and done, go off and do one activity and you're done with the process. But in some cases, you take on one challenge, you play through that challenge, and then you take on another challenge and another. As we saw with Salesforce, or if we think about Salesforce or sales teams, this is one of the things that they're often do. And this loop can be individual activities. This could be, if we use sales again, my sales number for the week, let's say, or something that I'm trying to recover within a week. But it normally starts off with some challenge. Can the employee complete 5 tickets in a day on a help desk? Or has a student or the participant been able to walk 3 miles this week? There is some challenge set forth for them. And with that challenge, we circle some gameplay activity, and we'll go deeper into the mechanics that are associated around those. That challenge ends up with some sort of win-loss condition. Those results go to a leaderboard. I might get some type of badge for success in that, or it might just be the leaderboard. I might have an opportunity to share that out within my social network, whether that's the general public or within my corporate structure. And that sharing or those badges may also result in me improving my status as well. And we go through that loop, but we also have a smaller loop that might take place within the gameplay elements themselves. Oops, sorry. And that might be undertake a challenge, have a mini challenge within that, have a win-loss situation, and then come back to the gameplay. And if we use the example of, there's a mobile app called Run Zombie Run, and there's a mobile app called The Walk, which are all about getting yourself out and moving more frequently, whether it's walking or running. These often give you very little challenges that you might complete over a week, which all sum up to your total challenge. So we could create that loop, but just creating the loop doesn't mean that we've created an engaging activity for the user or our learner. So creating these is actually, it can be hard work. We quite often have to do a number of iterations in the design process to motivate our employees. Another component of that is really understanding who your employees are and how you can motivate them. So as we mentioned, just adding the points and the badges don't automatically make something fun. We often have to think about the other things that we can use for an employees. The true magic happens when you create a challenge that's a little harder than the employee or the individual can manage, and they have to work at it. And then when they succeed, it's extremely rewarding to them. That's when that epic win takes place. Some of you might be familiar with the idea of flow or flow theory, and it's this idea that you want to keep the players inside of this flow channel where they're buffering between a task that is too frustrating and a task that is too easy. At times, as I become a master of a particular either a learning objective or a bit of content or some knowledge or even a physical activity, as I become better at completing it, the challenge should escalate as well, so I'm constantly being challenged to the experience. And then, as I mentioned, and we'll talk about now, is this idea that there are various players that are motivated by different things. And there are a number of studies out going now to talk about, well, how do I look at my players and determine what type of players there are? My last count, I found about 11, or I think it was around 11, different ways of thinking about player types or who my players were and trying to categorize them. Richard Bartle came up with this concept of sort of the gamer psychology, and he broke them up into these 4 categories. But there are a number of them out there. I've seen 4, I've seen 8, I saw one with 12. There's another that I like that I'm starting to make more use of, which also uses 4, and it sort of shifts the onus of where someone sits around in these. But this is very similar to what we did with Myers-Briggs, where I answer a series of questions, and the completion of those questions tells me a little bit about me as the individual, and what my player types are like, and the activities then that I'm looking for in my game experiences. So those 4 categories we'll see here. There are the achievers. They're the individuals that go to great length to go out and find everything there is into the game. They want to grab all the points. They want to grab the highest levels. They want to be engaged and uncover every stone. And that's similar to the explorers, where the explorers want to make sure they've seen everything, where my achievers want to get or gain everything that is possible within the system. Socializers are the ones that want to share in the activity. They don't want to go solo. They're not the lone wolves. They want to say that they want status, but they also are willing to take people along with them. They're willing to chat and talk about what they found in the game and sort of share that information and knowledge, which is kind of great to see. And then the last is the killers category, and using the term killers, but normally these are the people that really thrive on competition. They're those that want to go in and they want to see the leaderboards, and they want to know that I'm ranked number 9, and whether that's regardless of what the units of measure are, whether those are kills, books read, miles walked, they want to look at their circle of friends and know that they've done better than others. Quite often, I personally consider myself, Lori, a lurker, but I also fit within that explorer area as well, where I can go out and experience things by myself and find things. I might post what I find, but I might just keep it to myself. I don't want to be judged about my score with others. I just want to go and have an experience that I find pleasurable. So based on normally what happens when you complete the Bartlett quiz, and I have to apologize, I checked last Friday, and this quiz has actually been taken down. They're in the process of reworking it with some new information and sort of looking at some other categories. So you can't go out to that URL right now and check it, but I'm hoping they're going to put it back in the same place. The Bartle quiz was actually 30 questions that go through a variety of different scenarios to help you identify which one of those categories you fall into most. And then you get back a score such as this that tells you where you fit on a continuum of 0 to 100 within each one of these categories. So me personally, I'm an ESAK, where, as I mentioned, I'm an explorer. Socializing is the second thing. I don't care if I find everything to do in the game. I do like to go off and find things on my own. And the idea of keeping a score or the idea of beating others isn't really a big motivator for me. So, you can see here where my E, the explorers, were the greatest. What I'd like you to do is I'd like to see across the room where do you guys fit in? Do you find yourselves, do you think you're more of an achiever, or an explorer, a socializer, or a killer? So Justin's going to pull up another poll, which we can look at. It's interesting, we did this activity for a group of military execs, so we're very close to the Army War College, and we had a number of sort of generals in training do this, and to no one's surprise, the killers ranked high, but it was a very close tie with the achievers and the socializers. So they were very clustered together, and we were really surprised that it wasn't all killers, which everyone thought. So we'll take a second and see that a lot of you are registering as explorers as well. And as I mentioned, I really hope that people have an opportunity to go out and take a look at this URL. It's not up right now, as I said, but hopefully it'll be up soon. And hopefully it'll come back. And you can search around for the Bartle quiz. And I saw a number of other quizzes like it that are out there, but this is the one that I actually enjoyed the most, and I thought it was kind of interesting. Okay. So over 50% that have chimed in so far have identified themselves as explorers, which is great. Yes, you're right. It could be the field. So when you think about giving this to an entire organization where you're going to see people from multiple backgrounds, even in a single department, you can have people from multiple backgrounds. You will see a little more. You will see this a little differently displayed. So if we continue on, I sort of talked about these things already. I want to go back to this idea of the loop itself. Actually, Christopher, you are correct. Even talking to some of my students that consider themselves hardcore gamers, a number of them have said that their score has changed over 2 years, where the type of games that they enjoyed playing changed, therefore their activities and what they enjoyed inside of the games changed. So this isn't a one and done thing. This might be a testing the first initial setup of your activities, and then as you look at the data, making adjustments downstream as you see changes. So if we go back to our loop here, I only have a couple more slides to go through. If we go back to our loop and we think about that area of gameplay which we skipped over, there are a variety of things that exist inside of that gameplay, and these are what are known as mechanics, or there are components that exist while I'm engaged in a game activity and how they're used to judge how I'm doing to myself, how I'm doing to others, or how I'm doing to the system itself. And they all sort of work together, and you'll see a lot of them here. And if you, too many here to really for us to go into a lot of detail on them, but if you look at gamification.org, I have some slide at the end that sort of lists some of these URLs, but it sort of breaks down the meaning for a number of these. Sort of appointments, there's lottery systems that you can use to keep people engaged. Some people are engaged by levels and achieving points, going on quests. Each of these is a different mechanic that can be utilized in a game. I've also took some time and sort of categorized them into various areas where I can look and see, well, the pinkish areas are sort of about feedback to the user, or the behavior are things that I can change how a user might make use of an activity, or sort of if I'm trying to get them to, if I'm trying to promote a specific behavior, I can use these things to do that. And then you have progression, which is a great way for individuals to check back to see how they're doing along the entire continuum of whatever activity is that they're undertaking. We all need urgent optimism. It's not easy to achieve, but it's interesting that each one of these also break down into specific behaviors that are associated with the player types as well. So certain player types will hit 3 of these in clusters. And the URL, which is gamification.org, lists these out very well. And again, I have a URL at the end that sort of goes in and says, well, lottery touches the socializers and the achievers the most, right? So it's great when you can sort of test within your organization to see where your employees are. If they come up with mostly explorers, you're going to want to make sure that you have activities that allow them to do that, that they're going out on quests, that they might have ownership of locations or of things, that they have an opportunity to discover new things. And you can see now where a lot of these will overlap, but you can apply them to individual player types and then be able to really see how you can make use of these mechanics and provide examples of them. With that in mind, I do want to look at a couple of last examples before we'll sort of wrap up here. And I think Justin's telling us we'll have a few minutes for a couple of extra questions. But a couple of other ways of gamifying some activities. DevHub is a site mostly for programmers where if I go on and ask a question, I sort of register. If I ask a question, I actually get points for asking a question. I get more points for answering someone else's question. By answering more and more questions, I actually level up and I open up other activities that I can do within the site itself. Tycoon Me is similar, where I'm simulating various roles. This is another one for mostly high school kids. But as I go through and complete these activities, I sort of gain an understanding of how I would take place in these roles. And it's very similar to The Sims, if you think of. But there's a component of social media in there, or social sharing, that happens in there as well. I did mention Run Zombie Run, which is, I find it fantastic. I wish I was more of a runner. But essentially, you're wearing your headphones and you're listening to sort of a mid-50s radio broadcast of planet Earth after the zombie apocalypse, and your mission as a runner is running supplies from one town to the next. And as you slow down, or when the game wants to challenge you more, in your headphones you actually hear zombies chasing behind you. So that motivates you to run a little faster. And if you overcome your goals each week, you can actually, or each time, you collect more supplies, and you can improve the livelihood at the various times. And there's a whole drama that goes along as well. And it's really sort of an engaging. I love the fact that it's a throwback to the radio dramas, and we see it unfold. They have another product called The Walk, which is more my speed, where after walking for so many minutes, you unlock different episodes of the story. And I have found myself many times of getting to a part of the story and saying, you know what, I'm going to walk 10 more minutes because the next milestone is just up ahead, and I want to unlock it to see where the story is going. As lazy or sedentary as I like to be, it's kind of great to have a story unfold to me to tell me how to do this. And then the last is from Intuit. It's meant, and it's a way of gamifying my finances. So you're going through and you're making sure that you get points for balancing your checkbook, or you get points just for going through and tagging some of your purchases so that they can be categorized perfectly, So it's a really great tool for sort of, I love it for young college students, as they're getting a handle of their personal finances and they really want a good picture of, well, where is my money going, and how can I plan appropriately. So those are a couple examples of where gamification is being applied, and various areas. So last up is sort of the rules. So one of the things is you have to think about what the goals are, and you have to understand what constitutes a win for an activity or for the organization. Is it that the employee is completing their logs on time? Is it they're showing up on time? Is it they're working more with others and sharing their knowledge? We want to find out what are the motivators of your players. You might do player types, or you might just use a cross-splattering of different mechanics so that you can hit different types of players. You want to design for that emotional human and not the rational one. You want to have someone engage in rewarding activities. It might be telling them a little story on the completion of an activity to help the story keep them engaged as well. You want to develop scalable activities. If they're not really scalable, it's really hard to build something, to go through the effort of just building it for the HR staff and then it not working for these others. So quite often when we're testing, we're sort of seeing those things. And scalability can come through with your mechanics, but it can also come through in in your testing and how often you're testing and how much more information you can get out there. There are vendors out there who are providing tools which allow us to do this. Right now, we see a lot of these activities that are more of the carrot. I'm just doing rote knowledge, or I'm just completing these activities because someone else told me that I have to do it. I'm not personally motivated to do it, therefore it's not fun. So I do it less of a because it's a good thing to do, and more so because it's my job, or it's my paycheck, or it's some other things. So as I mentioned, here are a couple of the various vendors that are out there providing resources. Each one of them have a number of white papers written on applying these skills within your organization. So you, in some cases, don't even know how to do it. You can go and follow along with their tutorials and their videos on examples of what other people are doing out there. Some URLs. Here's the gamification.org wiki that I mentioned that has a great description of a variety of different mechanics and how they apply to other ideas. And The Pleasure Revolution by Jesse Shell. You should probably go out to YouTube and take a look at that as well. These are just a number of ways you can go out and find out more information about gamification, how it can be used for business, how it can be used in your organization, how it's a training tool, and how you can create fun, engaging activities for a number of things. I'm just at time. I'm going to list the 5 motivator workers here in the chat session as we go off. I'll post something in a couple of days as a blog entry where I'll go into more detail in those first personal motivation tips. Sorry to rush along at the end, but I really wanted to get as much information and get to these resources as possible. I hope you enjoyed the little talk that we did here today. I apologize again for the audio problems that we have at the beginning, but the gremlins are the gremlins. So Julia, if you want to close up, or Justin, thanks a lot for everyone. I'm glad you had an opportunity to attend, and I hope you gleaned something that you can take back to your teams or use in your daily life. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks a lot, Charles. That was really good, and thanks everyone for your patience in dealing with those little audio hiccup gremlins that Charles was describing there. So just bear with me for a couple moments here. We really appreciate your feedback at the end of these sessions so that we can continue to improve them. Before we get into the feedback slides, I just want to go back through a few of our promotional pieces here. Just a reminder of who we are, Harrisburg University. You can check out the slide and see some of the programs that we have available. We're also very proud of our Learning Technologies Master of Science program, which is great for instructional designers and developers, so be sure to check that out at your leisure. Also, professional webinars, workshops that we offer, many which are free, so at your leisure, check us out there. This is a book that it's coming from Charles Palmer, who's our who you've listened to today, and also Andy Petrosky, who you may be familiar with, who's a former employee of the university and big name in gamification. So we're looking forward to Charles and Andy's book coming out very soon. So you heard it here first. And then also we're a little plug for Epic Games here, which is a development area. Thanks again to Training Pros. We're just very glad to be partnering with Training Pros and everything that they offer to us, and our partnership allows us to put together these webinars and have these meaningful opportunities here to learn. So thank you all for sticking on. I'm going to switch to a layout here that's going to have our feedback slides, or our feedback mechanisms here. So please do give us some feedback on the webinars. We do want to improve them as we move forward. So I thank you again for your time today, for joining us, and I hope you got something out of it, and we look forward to seeing you on future sessions. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, weekend, and month, and we'll look for you at the next one. Thank you very much.